It's day 44 of the 1 year fast. And today is a fasting day. The protocol for the 1 year fast is for me to fast for 3 days per week. I choose the days during the week for 52 consecutive weeks. And I'm in week 7. And this week, week 7, I'm fasting today, which is Monday. I will fast again on Thursday and Friday. So one 24-hour fast and then one 48-hour fast. Again, feeling really good, feeling really energized, really positive about the whole project of the 1 year fast. And yeah, so I'm going to break my fast probably in about another 2 hours or so for this 24-hour fast. And usually I break my fast with a plant-based protein powder drink with spirulina and some fruit, typically apricots or maybe some blueberries. And so tomorrow when I step into a non-fasting day, I eat pretty simply. So I love my stew, barley stews, any legumes, chickpeas, lentils, with a whole host of different vegetables, onions, shallots, garlic. I love all of that. Good stock, put it all together. And I can prep a week's worth of food within one sitting. I also love cabbage pancakes. My wife makes amazing cabbage pancakes. I've never been to Japan, so I don't know what the Japanese version would be like, but I do love cabbage pancakes. So, I'm a vegetarian. I turned vegetarian when I was 16. I am the world's worst vegetarian. Over the years, I've fluctuated between vegetarian, vegan, pescatarian, all over the place. Again, really inconsistent. A terrible, terrible example for the vegetarian community. But I do try. And that's half the battle. So yeah, tomorrow there'll be probably some cabbage pancakes and a stew, and that will be me. And of course, I do intersperse that on non-fasting days with protein drinks and spirulina. So I like to engage in moments of reverie, just to really surface those potential indicators around emotional, mental health, etc. And today I was thinking about the contrast between supermarkets back in England, back in the UK, and supermarkets in America. And on the whole, I don't believe there's that much of a difference. Although, of course, there's lots of controversy around what types of ingredients, additives, etc. are permitted in the US that are not permitted within the UK and Europe. And that's definitely a conversation that needs to be discussed. And maybe we'll discuss that on a future video. But just on a light note, when I was back in the UK, I used to really go to Sainsbury's on the whole. So go to Sainsbury's majority of the time, sometimes to Tesco, sometimes even to Waitrose. And I don't know if it's still in existence. There was another supermarket called Safeway that I used to go to a lot. And supermarket shopping in the UK is not a terrible experience. Back in the UK, it was never a problem for me to go shopping and find the vegetarian food that I wanted for the week. Here in North America, so when I was up in the Northeast, in that New England area, I used to go to Big Y, Hannaford's, there was a place called Shaw's, and there was the ubiquitous up there Stop and Shop. And so these stores were pretty good too, and they weren't dissimilar to the supermarkets back in the UK. I believe of all of the supermarkets up in the Northeast, I probably found the Big Y was the one I found most convenient. And always had the best selection for me as a vegetarian, going to the Big Y. There was also lots of independent kind of health mini marts in the Northeast. I used to go to one, when I was living in Maine, there was one up there called On the Vine. I used to love that place. It was great. They had some really good organic vegetables and fruits, and it wasn't terribly expensive. Of course, a little bit more expensive than going to Hannaford's or Shaw's or Stop and Shop, but not terribly. And of course, if you had less, like quality over quantity, your food bill would basically be the same. So I used to love going to On the Vine in Maine. There was also a small independent store in Connecticut that I used to go to, Food Works, and that was not dissimilar. And now I'm down in the southeast of the US. Here we have Publix, also Trader Joe's, which is pretty. I like Trader Joe's. It tends to be very same old. Don't have much variety, but I do enjoy Trader Joe's, and they've got some good organic products, and they're not terribly expensive. So I like to go to Trader Joe's. I go to Publix occasionally. Also, I go to there's a small kind of, it's not a mini mart, but it's like a small supermarket called Sprouts. And Sprouts, they do some good organic products. So I like going there too. So when I look at food shopping back in the UK, going to the supermarket, and food shopping here in the US, they're not dissimilar. Of course, if you go back in time, then it does become very different. I remember as a child going out with my grandmother, and my grandmother lived in Hackney, and we would go up to the market, and my nan would buy all the fruit and veg from a stall. She would then go into a baker's and buy bread, and she would go into a butcher's and buy the meat she wanted. And so she would go to these individual shops when I was probably about less than 10, probably about 8 or 9, go to the shops and go to the market to buy food. So you wouldn't go into the supermarket back in those days. And of course today that's largely changed in the West. So we all get funneled into the supermarkets. And again, it's not a terrible experience. And some of these stores do make an effort to provide good nutrition. Again, there is that question mark over what is permitted in the US in terms of additives. Overall, my experience, let's say, born and bred in the UK, lived there to my early 30s, and then I've lived in the US for over 20 years. Look at the supermarkets in the two nations, they're not terribly dissimilar in terms of experience. Of course, there is that difference around what is permitted by the FDA in America and what is not permitted back in the UK in terms of additives or chemicals that are allowed into our food chain in the US. And that definitely needs to be looked at. So again, today is day 44 of the 1 year fast, coming to the end of a 24-hour fast. Looking forward to having my protein shake, again plant-based with spirulina, and then tomorrow stepping into 2 eating days. So I'm going to be eating on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then stepping into that 48-hour fast on Thursday. Hopefully by that time my new ketone reader, again it's a breath-based one, would have arrived, and I can test that and hopefully get some indicators around ketosis. If it doesn't work, I'm going to grab a blood-based ketone reader. Okay, again, keeping the video short today. And yeah, that's me. Thank you.